Hellraiser Deader is the seventh installment in the Hellraiser franchise and the second of the three films directed by Rick Bota. It is Rick Bota, right? Yes. This brings back Doug Bradley, of course, as Pinhead. He was Pinhead in nine of the movies, and damn, this film has some good going for it, but compared to the other two, and I mean, it's got more crap than good, really. This is not one of the better ones. This is another direct-to-video sequel. All the sequels are direct-to-video up until the remake. So this is obviously a script that was not written to be a Hellraiser film. We all know this. I don't really know what Rick Bota was going for when he made the trilogy. I don't know if it was on purpose. This film and the next one I'm going to be reviewing, Hellworld, came out in the same year, 2005. I don't know if he planned a trilogy or if he had any kind of idea going on by directing the three films. But regardless, this one, it follows a reporter, or like I don't know what she is. She's like a journalist, pretty much. Her name is Amy Klein, and we follow Amy Klein basically to Bucharest, Romania, and there's something going on there with basically a cult, and her boss sends her over there to check this cult out, and they call themselves Deaders, and Deaders, according to a tape that her boss named Charlie played for this woman, Amy. These Deaders apparently can bring the dead back to life. So in this tape that Charlie, Amy's boss, plays for her at the beginning of the film, there's this woman who shoots herself in the head where there's no blood present by any means. This film has certain scenes in it that are pretty gory in a sense, but there's other scenes that are just without it. So it doesn't really make too much sense. This videotape, she shoots herself, sans blood, and then this group of like culty members start like chanting over her and bring her back to life, and she's all like smiling and stuff that she was revived from the dead, kind of thing. So there's this character as well named Marla, and Marla is said to be Amy's sister, but it's just kind of brushed off. Like, it's mentioned, but it's not really emphasized. Like, you barely feel like these two are sisters other than it being mentioned. Like, they don't act like sisters. There's no backstory to them. This Marla girl lived in Romania in some apartment, and Amy goes to this apartment, and this guy lets her in, and she opens the door, or he opens the door, and she's all of a sudden disgusted by the smell, and she's like, "Does it always smell like this?" And the guy's like, "Smell like what?" And she's like, "Right." So apparently there's not much hygiene in these places, but you know, her name is Marla, right? Yeah. She's dead in the washroom. She's got like chains on her and all Hellraiser style kind of thing. I like how they designed her because she's all like distorted and her limbs are in weird positions and her eyes are like pure white. So she almost looks like dead girl zombie style, and it was really creepy the way they designed her and everything. She's holding the puzzle box on the floor. Amy takes the puzzle box, and there's also a package that has a videotape inside of it, and she takes this back to her apartment. She plays she plays this tape, and she has the puzzle box, and on the tape is Marla telling her about the Deaders and where they're located. They hang out basically in a subway, and she says whoever's watching this tape to ask for Joey. And after Amy watches this tape, she solves the puzzle box. It opens. You get these ridiculously CGI chains like grab her face. It's cool looking, but it's also fake as shit looking. So this film, I don't know if it had the budget like the other ones, but not so good with the CGI on this. She goes to the subway to discover these guys, and this cult, which they call Deaders, they hang out in a subway, and it's like their clubhouse. It's like their bar. I don't know how they get an entire train to themselves, but like each compartment, there's like, you know, art festivals going in there. There's drinking, there's sex, there's, tattoo artists, there's a weird kinky, gangy, culty shit going on with these debtors. Basically looks like a goth nightclub in there essentially. And this film did, like, how should I say, style wise feel a little bit more like the third one did. And you get very like 90s style, even though this is a mid 2000s film, you get like 90s style goth lore to it, and it feels a little bit like Crowish, like the third film felt. I also get a little bit of like Stigmata vibes, so the whole goth thing is cool, and I always respect that, and I liked the feel of the film style wise, so that's somewhat of a positive. She gets off the train after she's finished speaking with Joey, and then she sees this strange guy following her, and he's kind of like slowly approaching her, and then he jumps on the tracks and gets hit by a train. She starts screaming, and everybody panics around her. And when she calls the cops, or when the cops kind of investigate this woman, she says somebody jumped in front of the train, but they can't find any body, so they just assume that Amy's crazy, pretty much. Eventually, out of nowhere, Charles, her boss, shows up in Romania, basically unannounced. He barely even says why he's there. He just basically has a conversation with her. Some more lore is kind of brought up, and then she starts to go through these the underground of the city kind of thing, where it's like another hideout for the debtors, I'm assuming, and a lot of what happens like from mid movie on is very, very dreamlike. Another vibe I got from this film, although they are way better movies, is A Nightmare on Elm Street, because there's so many dream sequences going on, and during these dream sequences, or they kind of feel like limbo more in a sense, where it's kind of like a world that exists in between sleep and reality. That's where I get the Nightmare on Elm Street vibes, and just the way they were shot and filmed. I got a little bit of those vibes with this film, which was cool again. I liked certain settings and certain like costume design and styles of how certain scenes were, or pretty much the film was made, kind of thing. Just not so big on the story. It left me confused at the end. The whole climax and the whole ending was confusing. Apparently, this guy, who is essentially the leader of the debtors, from my understanding, this guy who she saw jump in front of the train, he's in this limbo himself. He discovered a portal into hell, so I'm not even sure if he used the puzzle box to discover this portal. I'm assuming he would have, but he didn't like enter the hell world completely. He's kind of like in between, like I said, in this limbo phase, and he's able to recruit or bring in these other people, including Marla, Amy's sister, and a group of other debtors who live in this world that they can't die, but they're not necessarily dead. It's really, really strange how they decide to tell this story. And Marla comes into the story as like a half dead character. She stabs Amy somehow in the back in her sleep at one point, where she wakes up in the middle of the night. She goes to the bathroom. This is one of the more gory scenes. She has a knife sticking out of her back, and it's like almost coming out of her front chest, kind of thing. And she's like screaming and yelling, and there's no pain. And then, Pinhead will show up at one point. He's like, "Why do you think you don't feel any pain? Where do you think you are?" And all this conversation more about flesh and stuff like that. But very, very, very convoluted. This is certainly a style film over substance, which sometimes is fine, and I can praise the style for it because it does look cool visually and it feels cool. There's just no story behind it, and if there is, I certainly didn't get it, and I almost like don't care. Like the main character is even with the debtors, they had a whole thing that they could have done with that, and they scratched the surface, and they whoever wrote the film, I'm guessing maybe Rick Bota or someone else, maybe it says behind here who wrote this, Neil Marshall Stevens and Tim Day. Confusing and convoluted story, and if the characters were more fleshed out, this could have been a better project, but I don't know. I'm not here to bitch about the movie or anything like that. I'm just saying it's not. It left me confused. I don't know what to say about this one other than it looked cool and it looked gothic and Pinhead looks cool as he usually does. But even like in the other films, like the last two I reviewed, for example, Inferno and Hellseeker, he gave so much reason for the main characters for why he's there, what Pinhead is trying to teach them. There was something that you learned at the end of the movie. There was a reason for the main character to be there and go through what they went through. Here, there's barely anything. So yeah, at the end, Pinhead shows up and he tells this woman Amy to join him and join the Hell world and stuff like that, and she refuses. So she basically kills herself. This causes the puzzle box to explode and basically implode the entire building that they're in. So the debtors are in Hell World, I guess, with along with Pinhead, and I don't know whether she is or not because at the end of the film, her boss Charlie is watching the news, and this building imploded, and everybody in it is dead, and Amy's missing. So he's, a selfish prick. So he's just like, yeah, we don't know where she is, but next moment he's hiring somebody else and giving her like a similar kind of project to do. And if that woman who came in at the end to do the interview was somebody who showed up in the movie, I didn't clue in. I didn't recognize her. She's just some random broad that showed up, and Charlie is just continuing on with his career of hiring journalists, I guess. And yeah, she's presumed dead, and the film ends that way. So, not much answers. It's a cool looking movie, and that's about it. Deader, I gave it 2 out of 5. Just because of the lack of characters, like I said, that's the biggest thing that this film is missing, and a convoluted plot that doesn't make any sense, and you don't really care to look into very much. At least I didn't. So, it's just fine. It's just fine to okay of a film. We'll see next viewing how that film lives up. Whether I remember it being okay, but maybe it'll be worse. I remember this being way better than, like from my memory, I remember this being way better than this viewing. So we'll see if the same thing happens with the next viewing. Till then, subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you like to listen to my voice or if you like my film reviews. I'll be back with more soon, so stay tuned for those. Check out what's on the channel already. Stay tuned for what's coming. Until next review, have a good one, take care, and cheers.